What's up, dude?
Hey, dude, how is it going?
Good, man. So we're going to talk about Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, we can. Let's play music and then let's just go into it. I'm actually so happy that you brought that up because actually, no, I have mixed emotions. I'm happy and I'm sad. Um, we do need to talk about Free Comic Book Day because it was like literally now, um, in lockdown, and unfortunately, everyone is missing Free Comic Book Day. I haven't seen anything around if they might shift it to another day when maybe the world goes on slightly less restricted access and stuff. I hope they do because there was a couple of comics in what they had advertised were going to come out that I really wanted to get my hands on. One in particular was a whole thing on Jack Kirby that Tom Scioli was doing. And I really wanted to get my hands on that because it looks amazing. And I think it's going to be a whole series that's eventually going to be like a TP graphic novel on the life of or whatever of Jack Kirby.
Yeah. I just think it's really sad, man, because we have mentioned Free Comic Book Day and the purpose of it, and I just think it's further like salt to the wound or whatever you want to call the saying. I mean, these comic book stores are already suffering, especially our local ones. And
Yeah,
this
man.
is such a draw card event for people that just want to get free comics and stuff, and then they end up buying other stuff, and it's like, nope, we're taking that from you too. So
Yeah,
I'll be honest, that just like usually there's so much more marketing around it. It actually went way over my head. It's we recently, posted an article, and we'll put the links in below of the digital comics that were released by a kind gentleman. I forget his name. So
and we'll
if
put it in the comments. Maybe we'll just give him credit to say
Yeah,
thanks for doing that.
definitely. So for anyone out there, they can download it digitally, and if it's a first time for anyone, there's tons of free comic book readers on tablets and phones. They run off a specific file kind of type, but this guy's given it to us, So and there's no specific titles I was looking out for, but it's on my to do list to check out.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think we'll keep those available through the links will come into our comments section or the description. We'll find a place to put them on this particular video, and we'll keep those there for a week or so for folks to access them and download those free comics.
Yeah, no, I think that's a cool idea, especially if there was something out there that, I mean, you had a specific issue you were after, but because of like the lack of marketing, and I'm not gunning anyone, I mean, that's lockdown's fault. Like I said,
Yeah.
it kind of just went way over my head. I totally forgot about it. I'm like, oh yeah. So yeah, man, but it's it's cool that it's around that time of the year already, but this year is moving, man. I'm just interested to see how long this lockdown's still gonna go on for. And
Yeah.
I mean,
I,
we've got Comic Con to worry about. I don't know. I mean, they haven't really said anything, and I do think that that's because they are seriously waiting it out and holding out.
yeah, 100%. And that's going to be a tough one because I think it's due to come around September, October time, and a lot of what we're hearing is things might only normalize or right themselves around September, October time. It's a tough call. It's a fine knife edge to run. I mean, I think the last thing they would want to do is decide, okay, let's green light this thing. Let's try go ahead with it, ticket sales, the whole works, and then due to last minute unpredictable things, suddenly lockdowns
Stage
gets
5.
100%, and then
Yeah.
it's like, sorry, you can't have a mass gathering like that during that period, and then it's like, okay, can we get our money back, please? And that could just,
Yeah,
yeah,
that could shatter a company. I mean, even dude, at the moment, it's a more like joke talk or whatever. But I've kind of been flirting with the idea of gathering a few mates. It'll probably end up being a couples trip, but trying to go to something like BlizzCon. I don't know if you've heard of it, but essentially it's Blizzard's con, which is Blizzard is the company
yeah,
that's responsible for Overwatch, StarCraft, Diablo. The list goes on and on. They make incredible games, and they have their own con every year. I think it's in Anaheim, California, and it's also
okay,
around, I think, that November-ish time. So I've started like saying to like mates like Key and Tash, so I'm like, let's make it a bucket list thing that we got to go, and because we'll also get to play Diablo like 4 years early than its release, because they got like live demos there and you can jam, and so that's like a working idea. But even if you go onto their website now, usually, I mean, it's a thing, it goes, and they said like they're actively looking at pursuing having an idea, but they don't know, so they might have to have like an online event. Which is, if Comic-Con South Africa has to do something like an online event, it's going to nail them hard. I don't even think they'll consider it.
Yeah, again, BlizzCon online event, I think it works or could work because guys game online. So we'll just do at this time, come log into this session and see this demo or play this demo, or it's more doable. Whereas a lot of the magic around Comic-Con is the walking the aisles, going to Artist Alley, going to the various vendors and seeing or hopefully getting a bargain on this item, that item, interacting with various comic folk that hopefully make the trip out, be it
and
artists
there's cosplay,
or writers.
which is a whole, like industry in its own.
Yeah, man.
And then there's like the role play stuff.
Correct, and it's difficult to do LARPing or role playing online.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So I think for BlizzCon, it's probably one of the very few niche things that online could
pull it off. Yeah,
makeshift do this one time, but most of the other cons are very reliant on that interaction, walking the stalls and seeing things and people.
Yeah, man. Uncertain times.
Definitely, man. Jeez. And actually, that like had me kind of thinking about, I don't know, one of my other loves and passions, I guess, is, and as you were talking about Diablo, was kind of like the role-playing D&D. I actually ended up watching like a kind of a history of D&D thing on YouTube probably last week sometime, and interesting to see like the one name that sticks out to me is Gary Gygax, it was Gary Gygax was one of the founding guys. It was him and someone else, and how they took this idea of using part of your imagination, but guidelines, rules, etc., to create a character, have the character be in this world, and go on quests and do things and gain experience points and level the character up and all of that stuff. And I just think like this kind of concept started back in the 70s.
Jeez.
It was a phenomenon in Britain and in the world. It kind of had a bit of a dip, and it's recently, I think they redid a lot of the rules in that. It's version 5 that kind of reinvigorated the game. And I think since then, I think they're on rule version 6 now. But most guys will say to you, a good place to get on board and jump onto it is version 5 now. And I've seen a lot of the local stores have it. They have it online as well, where you can get the basic starter pack just to get you and a group of friends going into the world of D&D. They've streamlined it to a degree to make it more accessible or easier to understand. I know when I was a kid, I played D&D with some of my friends. I had a friend, Kevin Distiller. His older brother and sister played D&D. Initially, we were too young to play with them and their older friends. They were like teenagers. We were still kids in primary school type of scenario, but we were huge fans of that. And they had a board game called Talisman. It was based on the D&D type thing, and you'd get a character. You could be like a knight or a thief or a paladin or a wizard or a mage or whatever. Get your character. With your character came certain skills and attributes and certain weaknesses. And as you would go along the board of Talisman, there were different layers or realms that you'd have to move up to until you went to the center to win the Talisman of Power. First one to the center would win the game. But as you're going along the way, things come up like dangers, and like you'd go to a certain spot and suddenly there'd be a troop of orcs that you'd have to fight, and they would have a strength rating, and you'd have to see how your warrior's strength would match up, and if you had any swords or shields to complement your strength, your defense, magic potions to heal yourself if you're in that fight. And yeah, man, you could encounter each other on the board game, battle, and if you beat the guy, you could take his items. Like if he had a sword or shield, take that. If he had a pack mule with extra items on, you could steal the pack mule that was spoils of victory. And then that kind of was our segue into D&D. And I just, so many fond memories playing D&D. And, if you had the right group of people, a good dungeon master helping weave and craft the story, it was just so much fun. Sometimes the games were quite serious. Sometimes you'd all be in the mood to just go balls to the wall nuts, and you do crazy psychotic things, like maybe even bored of a character. It might have gotten to a certain level where it wasn't fun playing with him anymore, so you'd go and do suicidal things to see if you could get through the thing, or maybe just kill him off so that you could kind of restart and rebuild anew. And I find it fascinating how those basic concepts of speed, strength, agility, dexterity, intelligence, cunning, these attributes have been carried into games like Diablo, Dungeon Siege. You can pick a character. Is he an elf? Is he a dwarf? Is he a mage? Is he a wizard? And based on what you've picked, race even, it's going to
they excel
influence
in certain things, yeah.
100%. And I just, yeah, man. For me, a couple thoughts there. It's almost like that. If something works, or if it's not broken, don't fix it. And all these games like Diablo, World of Warcraft have taken that basic engine and said, this concept, this rule set, this style of building up characters and developing them and leveling them up, and it works. So let's go with that. And I think of games like Final Fantasy that I used to play, same concept. Get a party together, the strengths with some people, weaknesses, and hopefully the other people in your party would make up for the weaknesses that your character has and complement each other. And I just got me thinking about that. It's one of my all-time.
Yeah, it's funny, dude. Like D&D was growing up for me. It was like that thing I heard about that was so inaccessible. And that sounds stupid, but it was just never around. And I'd hear about people talking about it, and like in movies and stuff, and I'd be like, "What is this?" And then I also heard about magic, and I also never got into that either. And then I kind of, and then just time disappeared, and I was like old, and too late to get into it. So I was like, oh well, one of those things I just skipped.
Yeah, but in kind of another interesting point for me is you're not too late, because you and Kira and Keegs and Tashish, you guys are in it through Diablo.
Yeah. No, exactly.
You're living the D&D dream
Yeah.
through. It's like the Diablo version of D&D that you guys are all versed in, and I think it's awesome. I like that it's almost like this game or this mechanism that's standing the test of time, not only in its own right, but just how it's influenced those types of games and gotten guys like you who never played the original D&D, but I can talk about all the various concepts of D&D, and it's not foreign to you because you experienced it through the game.
No, I agree, definitely.
I think that's so cool, hey?
Cool. So I thought it was a very random switch of topic. I'm interested to see, just off the top of your head, what your thoughts are. We have talked about this, I think, once or twice, but what your thoughts are on universal basic income, if you know what it is. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Universal basic income.
So I can give you, in a nutshell, it's a concept that is being thrown around, especially a lot in American politics at the moment. As you'll shortly hear, it's because it wouldn't be a luxury in South Africa, but lockdown is actually what got me thinking about it. I mentioned in one of our early videos when we were catching up about, I had a cousin that was being paid her full salary, basically staying at home and stuff. So the idea,
part of it was company subsidized and part was government subsidized.
Yeah, correct. And a lot of people say it's a sort of like a communist, socialist sort of idea, but the idea is essentially what you're trying to do is eradicate all low, extreme level poverty. So the government would be powerful enough to subsidize absolute minimum income, no matter what, if you work or if you don't. So say, for instance, your absolute basic income is, your overheads, I'm talking about absolute essentials, is 5,000 Rand a month. You will get 5,000 Rand a month no matter what.
Okay.
Whether you sit at home or whether you do anything. And that's the basic concept of it. again, so I know I'm springing this on you. I don't know if you want me to talk about what I think about first, so it again gives you sort of time to.
As you're talking, I have some initial thoughts. The first one that leaps to mind, there's two parts to it, is the concept of nothing that's given to you has inherent value, really. It's that old adage of you hear stories of people who win the lottery and they blow all their earnings and winnings or whatever it is within like a year or something, and they're poor or poorer than when they actually went into the lottery. It's this whole sort of, it's like a karmic thing of, i.e., you didn't work for that money, so the universe or just your own subconscious kind of wants to get rid of the money because you don't feel like you deserve it because you didn't work to attain it. That's one train of thought. So if I look at an example like in the UK, in Britain, they've got the government pays you the dole if you don't have a job or something in your welfare, and then you get more if you are, what's the word? You'll get more of it if you are a family of so many children, etc. So for every child, you get X amount, X amount. And what is actually bred in the UK in some of the poorer parts, less fortunate, whatever you want to call them, is this apathy of people who go, well, I've got government subsidized sort of housing. I get a certain amount every month from the government. I don't need to work. It's enough that I can go sit in the pub, have a couple pints every day or something. And that's what these guys end up doing. And for a long, long time in Britain, it was a huge problem. That's why there's such a massive cosmopolitan, or whatever you want to call it, European/expat community. I mean, London alone, there's sections of London that are, the Russians are here, the Italians are there, these people are there, the South Africans are there, because the British didn't want to work. There was jobs, but they were just, why must we work when the government's giving us money anyway? So we can just ride this little gravy train. Granted, it's not a life of luxury, but yeah, why not? We've got a house that we can stay in, and we get a certain income, and we've got a couple kids that bolster that income. So why must we work? My initial thoughts on this thing is, if they're going to introduce it, if any country is going to introduce it, what's the catch? So, i.e., if you show up at whatever place to pack boxes or dig ore out of the ground or just be a parking attendant or something, but if you do something and you can prove to the government you're doing something, you're entitled to it. If you're sitting on your ass at home, you're not entitled to it. That's my basic thought there. And then it's the concept of, you're not entitled to this, because right now we have a lot of entitlement culture floating around in general. I think that something like that would just further exacerbate the entitlement culture that's floating around, i.e., I exist, so I'm entitled to this set income. I think it should be, if you show up and if you do something, then you are entitled to it. If you contribute to society in whatever capacity, no matter how small it might be, picking up garbage off the streets or whatever it is, not a glamorous job, but if you just do that, you're entitled to this thing from us. That's how I see it.
Yeah, so the reason I brought it up, dude, is because it's such a complicated topic and I have such mixed feelings on it. So initially I'm going to cover a very big part of me that agrees with you. We live in a sort of like this sort of new wave of entitlement, and it's an interesting gentleman raised to me once that it's that because our whole generation is being raised on what their rights are, but not what their responsibilities are.
Yes,
as a human being.
I agree.
And I think that's a big theme throughout. And the pessimistic / realistic side of me says that if we do this, you will get these people that sit on their butts, do nothing, slob away, and basically what you explained, abuse the system. But there's this other part of me that this more hopeful side. And it took lockdown also to get me thinking about it, because we are in this situation where for a lot of the part, people are in the situation where they're not working, and some of them are still earning income, as I mentioned. And even me, in my mind, I have these days where I get down and I get lazy, and but then I slowly snap out of it. And already now there's been days where I've got all these creative juices flowing, and it's all these ideas that I've bookmarked and put on the shelf, and I'm trying to figure out how I can make time to materialize them and stuff. And
Yeah.
what I wonder, what I ponder on, and again, I'm aware of how unrealistic this sounds, is if that's implemented, would there be this phase where everyone slobs off everyone, but then, as with the normal economy, there's those few like rough diamonds, the Elon Musks and stuff, and go, I don't have to worry about food. I don't have to worry about housing. So how can I change the world? And that's all I'm going to put my time in, because I don't need to worry about these basic things. And then a Bill Gates or this and that, they want to earn more money. They want to make more money. And look, I know, I don't know the economics behind that and how it'll affect capitalism and all that. But there will always be these people that pierce through the mold and go, no, this isn't enough for me. How can I make the world better or worse or whatever? And what I wonder is what the world would look like if we had 50 Elon Musks and not one.
Okay. Valid, but what you're kind of saying there, it kind of speaks to the other thought I had. If those people were in some way could register with the governments, the powers that be, to say this is what they're going to do, working on. They're a part of a think tank. They're coming up with these ideas, these ways, these methods. As long as they can register, get it on the books or in the system that this is what you're doing, be it you're going to work out in the farms, following normal farm food, or in the cities doing hydroponic farming of food, vegetables, whatever. That could all come and stem from there. And provided you show up to work and you just plant the seeds or pluck the fruit of those seeds, you're entitled to it. If you're one of those diamonds in the rough and you've either been singled out or you put your name forward to be one of those people in a think tank working, brainstorming, trying to come up with these things, and again, you show up to the think tank every day and you do your part, great, you're entitled to it. Like you say, yes, I don't have to worry about these things. So if that worry no longer a part of my life, I can produce and I can innovate and create. But it needs to be managed and regulated properly so that, those people can't just say, well, this is what I'm doing, and just slack off and do nothing. And again, it works in a system. So if you're a part of the think tank and you don't contribute or you don't participate to a certain level or degree, you're going to be removed out of the think tank and put into one of the farm communities or something else. Do your work there and earn your right to have this universal income. Who knows? Maybe while they're doing that, inspiration will hit them there on their own or whatever. And oh wow, one day in the field, he goes, hang on, there's a better way that I can streamline this thing here. He approaches the government, kicks off a whole different think tank or whatever it is. I don't know, but my whole thing comes back to they have to be. In order to get it, you have to be registered, you have to be on a system, and you have to be contributing to the overall whole in order to be entitled to receive that.
Yeah.
It doesn't work just because I exist, I'm entitled to. It's because I'm contributing, I'm entitled to. That's how it needs to be.
Yeah, and that's why it's still so tricky for me. I 100% agree with you. And there's an argument to be made that working to some degree gives your life meaning, because from the little I have been on this earth, there's suffering no matter what. So you've got to find goals that basically justify the suffering, right? So I know I'm getting a little bit deep now. So it might be working that job you hate to work to the next step, to eventually settle into something that you don't hate so much anymore, and it's that fight that to give you motivation to get out of that. And so it's a good plausible argument to say, well, if you take all that away, nothing will happen. But I still wonder would that not be the next evolution of like men where they don't have to fight through that. So it's only about traveling to space, only about curing AIDS, only about literally only making the world like a pristine diamond. And
almost like
I've now repeated myself, but it's super idealistic. I don't know if that's the right word, but I still ponder on it.
I think it's it's reminiscent to me of the first basic concepts of Star Trek, the TV show, where in that future we we're past the capitalism thing, and it is all about space exploration and the United Federation of Planets, and if you're a part of that United Federation of Planets, um, yeah, you either enroll in Starfleet or you do something else on Earth that you contribute to the whole. And as long as you're contributing to the whole, you don't have to worry. You have a place to stay.
Mm.
You have access to education to advance yourself. And the people there are all about improving or enhancing themselves. Or if they're not, they're all about at least doing their part for the whole. And that's you don't see it so much in the original Star Trek series, but you see it more in the Next Generation with Picard and them. They often talk about when they meet new races that their existence and being is very much that. And some of them are Starfleet driven. They want to rise through the ranks and go from being a normal ensign to captain one day of a starship or an admiral or whatever the case might be. Those that don't go the Starfleet route, they're based on Earth, but they are contributing in some way to Earth's human race's general betterment. And as long as they do that, they don't need to worry about food or money or whatever, because they've got like these replicators, and all you do is you go to it, you tell it you want this, it makes it for you. It doesn't cost you anything. It just manifests whatever you want or need at that time. Clothing, all of that stuff. So yeah, it could be the foundational idea for that next phase for us as a human race. Who knows?